Joshua Steimle. Steimle rhymes with timely. Everybody who can spell it can't say it. If you can say it, you can't spell it. That's what I've grown up with my whole life. But anyway, Steimle. So I'm going to be talking today about how to get press, how to get into the big publications like Forbes, Mashable, TechCrunch, Entrepreneur, Time, Wall Street Journal, what have you. So we'll be talking a lot about PR, but we're talking about coming at PR from a content marketing angle. So a little background on who I am and why I can talk about this. So I started a digital marketing agency back in 1999. It's called MWI. And 3 years ago, my agency almost went out of business. We lost a bunch of clients, and it was down to just me working by myself, and our revenues were at about $10,000 a month. And that might sound a lot for a person to make, but this was a business making $10,000, and $10,000 doesn't go very far for a business. So we basically went down to zero, and we were kind of rebooting at that point. And around that same time, I got the opportunity to write for Forbes magazine as one of their contributors on the website. And another part of the chemistry here was that I brought on a partner, Corey Blake, right over there. And within the next year, our revenue shot up over 1,000%. We completely changed the company from a small one-man operation with a couple of contractors into a real agency. Now we've got about 20 employees, and everything that we achieved with the agency was done through content marketing and through getting our content into top publications. And I'm going to talk a bit about how we did that, the tactics that we used. And for me personally, it's been great too. I've been able to give a TEDx talk, I got a book deal, I get paid to speak now. There have been all sorts of personal benefits for me as well as for my agency. And we use these tactics on behalf of our clients now too. So with that introduction, I'm going to rip through these slides really fast because I want to leave some time for Q&A at the end. But let's talk a little bit about you as well. Who here has been able to secure placement in what they would define as a top publication? Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, Wall Street Journal. So a couple here. How many of you would like to get into these type of publications? You feel like this would be valuable for your business or building your personal brand? Okay, how many of you are just curious and you thought, oh, this sounds kind of interesting, I'll just show up here. All right, so let's dig into this. So what's your problem? I don't mean like, hey, what's your problem, man? But what's the challenge that you're facing when it comes to getting content out there, getting content into the right places? What are some of the challenges that you face? So you might just not know who to contact. You might not know where to put your content. You might not know how to pitch your content. We're going to talk about those things today. Why do you want PR? Why do you want this kind of placement in these publications? When I started looking at getting PR, it was because I looked at my competitors' websites, and they all had these badges from news organizations on their websites, and it would say, as seen in these magazines, these publications, this TV show, CNN, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, whatever, and I thought, man, I want to get those on my website, because if I had those on my website, that would make my company look big and important, and clients would want to hire me. I wanted to get those badges on the website. But there are other reasons you might want to get PR as well. So there are those badges, and you might want to get clients for whatever you're selling, for your service, for your agency. Maybe you have clients and you want to help out your clients, so you want to get publicity for them. Maybe you want to sell a bunch of stuff and you see PR as the way to sell a lot of product. You want to get a book deal. You want to get paid to speak. You want to build your personal brand. You want to increase your influence with other people in the business world. You want people to know who you are and what you're doing. Maybe you just want to change the world and you see getting that PR as your way to get your message out that people are going to respond to. Maybe it's just an ego thing. I mean, it feels pretty good. You get published in these big publications and people start listening to you and paying attention to you. 3 years ago, before I started this, nobody knew who I was. Even in my home state, we were starting up in Utah, and not many people really knew what I was doing or who I was. And right after I started writing for Forbes, I moved to Hong Kong, where really nobody knew who I was. But I would go to business events and I could say, oh yeah, I run this agency, MWI, and everybody's like, no, whatever. And then I'd say, oh, and I do some writing for Forbes too. Oh, really? And then all of a sudden I was this popular guy at parties, which I'd never experienced before in my life. And so it was really great for my ego. It was a big boost. So now what if you could get all of this without PR? This is what I want to talk about first, because a lot of people come to me and they say, how do I get into Forbes? How do I get into this publication? And I say, well, what's your goal? What do you really want to accomplish with this? And do you need to get into those publications? Because if you're going to spend a ton of time trying to get into these publications, it's for some reason. And if you can satisfy that need and accomplish your goals without getting into those publications, without all that effort, let's talk about that first. So the thing with these publications is you don't really have control here. So there are some contributors in this room who have experience with this. When we write for Forbes or Inc. or Entrepreneur in these publications, it goes through an editor at some point. At some point, an editor looks at that, and the editor might strip out company names. They might take an article down. I've had articles taken down that I wrote, published, and then the editor came back and said, actually, we're going to take that article down. Sometimes editors will strip out links, so you might get a great PR placement that you work really hard on, and it's got that link in it, and then it gets published, and all of a sudden the link's gone, and you say, where's my link? And you go to the writer and you say, can you get that link back in? Would you mind adding that back in? And they say, oh, my editor won't allow it. You just don't have control. What do you have control over? You have control over your own website, your own blog, your email list, and really it's your website and your blog that are the hub of your publishing empire, your platform. This is what you really want to focus on. So anytime you're doing PR, anytime you're getting publicity, you really want to drive traffic back to your blog, build your email list, build the things that you can control so that you control your message, you control the value that you're putting out there, even if you're getting the PR. So first, we're going to talk about how to create a blog post on your own website without having to rely on PR, and how you can create a blog post that your customers are going to absolutely love and crave, the kind of content they're looking for, in just 30 minutes. Now, I read this on my description. I'm like, did I tell Byron that? Did I really say that we could create a blog post in 30 minutes that customers will crave? And I thought, man, people say anything to get into these conferences these days and get into a speaking gig. But I read that and I thought, okay, I've got to come up with exactly how to do this in 30 minutes. And then I started thinking about it from the other side, and I thought, wait a second, 30 minutes? I mean, who's got time for 30 minutes to create a blog post? So nobody got time for that, right? So let's talk about how to do a blog post in 10 minutes that your customers will crave. Now, Larry, he already showed you how he did in 10 minutes. He created a blog post that got tons of publicity. Let's talk about creating these blog posts that are going to drive customers for you in just 10 minutes. It's really easy. All you have to do is answer questions. If you just answer questions that your customers have, then you can create blog posts very quickly, and it's compelling content because you're giving people what they want to know. This is so simple, and yet a lot of companies, you go on their website, you won't find anywhere that they're really answering questions that their customers want to hear. So where do you find the best questions to answer for your customers? One is customer support emails. So if you get customer support emails, every time you get one of those emails, you should be thinking, how do we create a blog post that answers this question that we're getting from our customers? So mine your customer support emails. The great thing is once you create that blog post, then you can just send that to your customers. And when they ask the question, you say, oh, by the way, we already have a blog post that really goes into depth answering this question that you have. You send that to your customers. And now, instead of your customer support agents answering that question over and over and over again, writing it out, typing it out, you're paying for that time, they can just send that link to that blog post and say, hey, we answered it here. Also, when the customer gets that blog post, they might say, hey, this is a great blog post. It really gives me valuable information. Maybe they tweet it out. Maybe they share it on Facebook. Now you're getting distribution of that content. Other people are seeing it, and now that blog post turns into a customer acquisition tool, turns into part of your marketing. So another way is just talk to your customers. So Jay Baer, he wrote a great book about this called Utility. It's Y-O-U-Tility. And if you just go talk to your customers and ask them, say, what questions do you have? What do you want to know? What steps did you take to buy our product or service? What challenges did you have buying our product or service? Did you ever have doubts about buying it? You're going to find all sorts of great questions that you can answer and create really simple, easy content that will be compelling. Quora, it's a question and answer website. You go there, you can look up all sorts of questions related to your industry, the things that you do. I run an SEO firm, so I went there the other day and I typed in SEO, pulls up a bunch of questions. This was one of the more popular questions on Quora about SEO. What is the single best piece of SEO advice? And they had 100 responses, all these SEO experts answering this question. There were 689 people following this question, so I knew that it was popular. So I can look at that and say, hey, there's an idea for a blog post. I'm going to write a blog post answering that question, post it on my own website, and now I'm answering a question that I know people are interested in. They crave that blog post. So what can you do in your industry, with your business, with your company, to answer questions for customers? Now, the most fundamental question that you have to answer is, why should people buy what you're selling, and how can they buy what you're selling? Now, when I say why should they buy what you're selling, it's not why they should buy your product from your company, it's why they should buy that product generally. Now, who in this room thinks they represent a company that has the most boring product, or they have the most boring product represented in this room? Anybody? Okay, what business are you in? Insurance, yes. Who finds insurance fascinating? Right? It's a product that you buy it because you need it, but you're not exactly fascinated by it, right? I mean, most people aren't really interested in it. We work with self-storage companies. Self-storage is pretty boring as well. So you're laughing. Do you work in self-storage too? No? You just think it's that boring? Yeah. I mean, it's boxes, right? It's a building that's shaped like a box, and then you put boxes inside the box. That's it. That's the whole business. It's a pretty boring business. But you can make this interesting. You can answer questions that people have about your industry and about buying your products and services. You don't want to say, here's why you should buy my insurance company's product, my self-storage company's product. It's why you should have self-storage, why you should be buying insurance. You want to give people a reason to buy that general product. When you do this and you're not pitching them on your services, then you end up looking like the expert, and you're selling without selling. You're giving people a reason to buy that product. You already look like the expert just because you're talking about it. You don't have to sell your company. You just sell the product, and people will naturally come to you for it when you're the expert. So I wrote this article for Forbes a couple of years ago, Tips on How to Hire an SEO Firm. I didn't know what this article would do for us when I wrote this. I've written over 160 articles for Forbes over the past 3 years. This one drives 95% of the leads that we get from the Forbes articles that I've written. This post has literally earned our business millions of dollars of revenue, this single post on Forbes. Don't tell them that. I hope they'd never take this down. But if they hear how much money I'm making off of it. But I didn't intend to do that when I wrote it. I just wrote it. I thought, hey, I know about SEO firms. I see people making mistakes when they hire SEO firms. I'm going to write a piece about this. I wrote it, and all of a sudden we started getting flooded with leads from people who wanted to hire an SEO firm. And I thought, man, I'm onto something here. This is great. I tried to duplicate that. I couldn't duplicate that success with any other post that I ever wrote. This is the post that did it. So whatever your business is, you need a blog post like this that says, this is how to use our service, our product, how to hire our type of company. This is the right way to do it. And in here, I'm not pitching MWI. I'm not pitching my agency. I'm just pitching SEO and saying, this is how you go about hiring an SEO firm. And I just lay it out, and it's authentic, and it's just normal advice. It's got about 113,000 views, and it's been great content for us. Now, you're looking at this and you're saying, well, that's great, Josh. This is on Forbes. What about me? How am I supposed to get my content out there if I'm not getting this stuff published on Forbes? Now, the thing is, yeah, if you get on Forbes, it's a great platform. You can get a lot of exposure, but you can get the same type of exposure from other places that are accessible to anybody. So here's an example. Here's proof. I wrote this article, How Getting Fit Saved My Life and My Business. And I published this on Forbes, and it talked about how I was really out of shape, and then I lost a lot of weight, and how that helped my business and helped me as an entrepreneur. And If you look up in the corner there, it's got about 3,000 views on this article. Well, that's great, right? 3,000 views, that's a fair number of people. I took this article, I copied it, just copied and pasted it into the LinkedIn Pulse network. Anybody has access to LinkedIn Pulse. If you're not familiar with it, go log into your LinkedIn account, find LinkedIn Pulse, and you can start blogging there. You can publish anything. Anybody can publish there. So when I publish on LinkedIn Pulse, I'm just a normal guy. I'm nobody special. I'm just posting stuff like anybody else can post. I copied and pasted from Forbes, put it on LinkedIn Pulse, and it got 14,000 views. Forbes, 3,000 views. LinkedIn Pulse, 14,000 views. Where do you get more traffic from, Forbes or LinkedIn Pulse? Sometimes you get more traffic on LinkedIn Pulse than you get from getting an article in Forbes. So you might be spending all this time trying to get PR, and you're ignoring these opportunities that are right there accessible to you today. So, by the way, people love content that's about getting fit, losing weight, making money. So whatever you do, whatever your business is, insurance, self-storage, anything else, doesn't matter what it is, this month, go write a blog post about how that helps you lose weight. This month, do it, whatever it is. How buying insurance will help you lose weight. How getting self-storage will help you lose weight and look great. Doesn't matter if there's no connection. Write that blog post, figure out a connection, even if you have to use humor to do it. But figure out that connection, write that blog post. I guarantee people will read it and they'll love it. So the next tip here is, how do you create graphics that will help you get your content picked up by the media, or just make your content more shareable? Increase the shareability of your content. Shareability. I have no idea how to spell that word. So, and I'm a writer. So the BuzzFeed community, this is a case study. This is a way that we used graphics to get massive traffic for one of our clients. Now, you're all familiar with BuzzFeed. It's that website with the cats and the headlines that say, I did this the other week, and when you see what happened, your jaw will drop. You know, BuzzFeed ruined headlines for everybody else. Now, all the other news organizations are imitating BuzzFeed with their headlines. So BuzzFeed has this community section where anybody can post. So you can go set up an account on BuzzFeed, and then you go up here and you click on New Post, and you can post in the community section. A lot of people aren't aware of this. So when you post on BuzzFeed and then you share it, people think, oh, there's a BuzzFeed article. Well, no, this was actually just something that any normal person logged in and created on BuzzFeed, but people don't know that. So you can piggyback off of the quote-unquote credibility of BuzzFeed and get articles out there with the BuzzFeed name on it and get some publicity out of it. Here's how we did it. So we have a client called Beard Brand. They make products for guys with beards, which is not me. I'm not their target customer. And they make things like beard oil and beard grooming kits. And this is for men, you know, with thick, lustrous, manly beards. These are the guys, hipsters, who are buying this product. You know, guys like this, that's me a few years ago when I was channeling Jerry Garcia for a few months. And so we asked this question, what would the US presidential candidates look like if they had beards? See, 100 years ago, they all had beards, right? Every presidential candidate had a beard 100, 150 years ago. But we thought, nobody has beards anymore, but what would these candidates look like if they did have beards? And we thought, you know, we can create this post, we'll put it up on BuzzFeed community, and let's see what traction we can get out of this. So I went to Upwork, which is a website where you can hire contractors. I'm not that good with Photoshop, especially not photoshopping beards onto presidential candidates, but I went on Upwork and I hired a guy for $150. I gave him 10 photos of presidential candidates and I said, put beards on these guys and make them look good. So he came up with some photos of the presidential candidates. So you got Jeb Bush sporting a beard. See, he would have gotten a lot more votes, I think, if he had had that beard on. He couldn't have gotten less votes, right? So, you know, Marco Rubio, we went for the Cuban look with him. He's got a little Fidel Castro thing going on. We've got Trump there, sporting the beard. And then I'm all about equal opportunity, so we had to put the women in there too. So we stuck this post up on BuzzFeed community. And then I did a little bit of content amplification through Facebook. So kind of like Larry was talking about, I went into Facebook, I targeted people who were into BuzzFeed and humor and Reddit, and those things, and we figured out a formula where we could do Facebook ads and boost the post, and then it would get a viral thing going so people would share it more. And here are the results. Within the first 10 days, we got 110,000 views of this content. Drove a ton of traffic to the post. A lot of that traffic went back to our client beard brand. And over the next 6 months, this piece kept getting more and more attention from other sources. So Huffington Post wrote an article about our article. It got picked up by Fox News. It got picked up by all these different blogs and outlets, and it drove a lot of attention for our client. Total cost, about $450 or so. And if I had listened to Larry's presentation earlier, I probably could have done the same stuff on Facebook for $50 instead of $300. So that's how we used graphics to increase the shareability of this content. Now, let's get to the part that you really came here for, getting into these top publications. I've talked about how to get attention without getting into the top publications, but here's how you get into these top publications and get that kind of content. And you need to learn how to pitch journalists the right way. Now, I'm not a real journalist. I'm a contributor. I write for all these publications, but I'm not a professional. I'm not a staff writer. I'm not paid to do this. I get to write for these publications. But still, I get all the pitches from people. So I have all these PR firms and companies emailing me every single day. Sometimes I get 20, 30 pitches in a day. And they're saying, here's why you should write about my company. Now, I can't write about 30 companies a day. I can't write about 30 companies in a month. So I have to decide which of these pitches am I even interested in looking at and which ones am I just going to ignore and delete. And 99% of the pitches I get are completely done the wrong way. We're going to talk about doing it the right way. The first thing is you need to focus on which outlet you want to get into. TechCrunch is not Mashable, is not the Wall Street Journal, is not Time, is not Entrepreneur, is not Forbes. These are different publications with different focuses. And your audience is reading certain publications. You need to identify which outlet is the right outlet. A lot of people say, well, I just want to get media, any media. It's all good. Well, you want to get the right media. You want to get media that's going to drive results for your business. Once you get the outlet, then you choose the writer. You say, okay, well, which writer at this outlet is the writer that I want to focus on because that writer writes about the stuff that we do as a company, or they target the audience that we're going after. Now, people at this point, they ask, well, how do I contact these writers? How do I find them? How do I contact them? How do I email them? How do I get on their radar? It's actually pretty easy, Twitter. So you go on Twitter, you look up journalists, and a lot of journalists put their email address right in their Twitter bio. So that's the easiest way. Now, if you want to target, let's say you want to find all the ink writers who have their emails public on Twitter. Just go to Twitter, do a search for @ink @gmail. You'll pull up all the ink writers who have a Gmail address listed in their Twitter profile. So that's a really quick way to find journalists that are publicly putting their email address out there. So let's talk a bit about how to pitch journalists the wrong way before we talk more about pitching them the right way. Here are the things that you should not do when pitching journalists, the kind of pitch you should not have. So first is the shotgun pitch. So this is where you say, it doesn't actually involve a shotgun, but this is the pitch where you say, okay, I want to win the lottery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to craft my pitch in email. I'm going to get a big list of journalists, and I'm going to send my pitch out to 200 journalists, and at least one of them should pick up my story, right? Wrong. As soon as you send that out, journalists can see that pitch a mile away. They can tell that you sent it to 200 people, even if you blind carbon copy it, even if you use an email system that puts their name in there, they can tell that that was sent out to 200 people, and they're not going to respond to it. Because as a writer, the last thing I want to do is write an article that somebody else might write. I don't want to write duplicate content. I want to write something unique. So you've got to reach out to one writer at a time, pitch one writer at a time. Yes, it's slower. Yes, it takes more time. But you actually get the article written. This way, you get 0 written. The special pitch. My business is so special. I'm so special. Our product is so special. It's so great and unique, and nobody else has it. Yeah, that's what everybody else says. So when you do that pitch, it sounds the same as every other pitch. It doesn't set you apart. And that's kind of the same as the I'm awesome pitch. We're so great, we're so amazing, we're so wonderful. Yeah, so is everybody else that's pitching me. I get 50 of these a day. The revolutionary pitch, just don't use this word in your pitch. So often I get emails from startups and they say, we have a revolutionary technology, a revolutionary SaaS product. Yeah, that's what everybody else says too. Their product is revolutionary. Chances are your product is not revolutionary or not nearly as revolutionary as you think. And anyway, don't tell me it's revolutionary. If it really is revolutionary, just show me that it's revolutionary. Give me the information so that I can determine that for myself. Disruptive is another word that you should not use in your pitch. Unless you are a student of Clayton Christensen who coined the term innovative disruption and you're an expert on innovative disruption and you know exactly what innovative disruption is and isn't and you can talk about that, maybe then you can use this term in your pitch. But if you just think that disruptive means that it's a great new thing that is shaking things up, that's not disruption. So don't use the word disruptive in your pitch. Don't use the word innovative in your pitch. These are just buzzwords that journalists see and they think, another one of these. So don't use these words. And don't just beg. Don't just say, oh, we need this so bad. It'll help our company so much. And if you could just write an article, I'd appreciate it so much. The begging thing doesn't come off well either, so don't beg. Journalists don't want to write about desperate people. So don't do the Uber of pitch. We are the Uber of whatever. We are the Uber of self-storage. We are the Uber of insurance. We are the Uber of tablecloths. We are the Uber of conference room chairs. I mean, you hear all these pitches. We are the Uber of this. We're the Uber of that. Don't say that your company is the Uber of such and such. That's fine when you're trying to explain to somebody what your business is, if it really is kind of like Uber, but don't use it in a pitch because that gets overused. The only way that you are going to succeed with the we are the Uber of pitch is if you can say we have been sued more than Uber. If you can do that pitch, that's impressive. I would write about that in a heartbeat. But nobody's been sued more than Uber. So how to pitch journalists the right way? The friend pitch is the best way to get in. That is, you have a friend who's a journalist, that's the hands down easiest way to get into an article. If you don't have a friend who's a journalist, maybe you have a friend of a friend who is a journalist. Check it out on LinkedIn, look at the journalist, see how you might be connected to a journalist out there. Use that connection. That's the second best way. But you're probably saying, well, I don't have a friend who's a journalist. I don't have a friend of a friend who's a journalist. So then what do I do? So that's where we get to the cold pitch, which is what most people are doing. Here's how you do the cold pitch the right way. So first off, understand that it's not about you, it's about the journalist. Too many people pitch the journalist and they say, well, here's who I am and here's what I need and here's what I want you to write about me. Think about what the journalist wants, what they're looking for, and satisfy their needs, and look at what they're going after. So here are 4 tips for cold pitches to make your pitch so that it will actually be read by the journalist, they'll actually think about it, and they might actually respond to that pitch. So first of all, know the writer, meaning know what they like, what they write about. You know, what does the writer want? Also understand what the editor wants, because what the editor wants is by necessity what the writer wants. And what does the outlet want? Know these things about them. And how do you figure this stuff out? You study the writer and you look at what they write. You get to know them. You get to know their interests. You have to spend this time. 99% of people don't spend any time figuring out what the writer is all about and what they write about and what they care about. If you do it, you're part of the 1%. It's going to set you apart in your pitch. It's worth taking 15 minutes to figure out what that writer is all about before you pitch them. Ask the writer. So this isn't stuff that I'm just saying, hey, you should do this. This is stuff that I went out and I tested because I thought, you know, I'm going to stand up in front of everybody and they're going to say, well, yeah, but you already write for Forbes and you already write for Mashable and TechCrunch and these publications, and so you can reach out to these writers and say, hey, I'm a writer just like you, and you can develop that rapport with them. So I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to test this out as though I'm just a normal person. I'm not a friend of these people. So I went out and I emailed 10 writers that I have no connection to. They have no clue who I am. And I just asked them, I said, okay, so here's an example. Alex, I just came across you while looking at Forbes writer profiles, and since you had your email listed there, I thought I'd reach out and say hi. What stories are you working on these days? Any particular sources, quotes, data, or other resources you're looking for? That's my pitch. I'm not asking him to write about me yet. I'm not asking for any favors. I'm saying, what do you need? What can I help you out with? And by the way, if you fill out the feedback through the conference app, then you get access to the slides. So if you just give me feedback after, it can even be negative, it doesn't matter, but you'll still get the slides no matter what, as long as you leave feedback in that app. So I sent 10 of these emails out. I got 2 responses. 20%, that's a pretty good response rate. So Alex, he's a staff writer for Forbes, and he wrote back to me. He said, hey, Josh, good to hear from you. Right now, I'm focused on venture capital and cloud computing. Not sure if you have friends in those areas. So now I know what Alex cares about. I know what he wants to write about. I'm not going to pitch him on writing about digital marketing or SEO or stuff that I care about, because I know now that he has 0 interest in that. He wants to know about venture capital and cloud computing type stuff. Now, if I go and email 100 journalists with this, maybe I'll get 20 responses out of that. Maybe out of those 20 responses, one of those journalists is going to be interested in exactly what I do or exactly the audience that I'm after. Then I know that's the guy that I want to target. If I talk to this guy, he's going to be interested in talking to me. Now with Alex, I didn't just leave it there. I didn't say, well, I'm not into venture capital and cloud computing, so I'll just not respond to Alex anymore. It happens that I do know some venture capitalists, and I do know some people who are in cloud computing. So I said, well, great. Yeah, my firm actually designed a bunch of websites for venture capitalists a couple years ago. I have some relationships there. If you'd like, I'd be happy to make some introductions to VCs. Now I'm developing a relationship with Alex. Maybe a year from now, Alex will come back and say, oh, hey, Josh, you helped me out on this other piece. Now I'm writing about this other thing, and I remember that you know a lot about SEO. Can I get a quote from you for this? Or maybe he never will, and that's okay. But at least I'm developing that relationship now with a journalist. I'm on his radar. He knows who I am. He knows what I do. He knows that I'm somebody who wants to help him out. If you've read Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, he talks about this type of thing. But making this type of connection, you're providing value for the journalist. You're giving them what they want. All right, so second tip, personalize your pitch. So here's a pitch that I got. Hi, Josh. I've been following your writing for a while. Thought you'd be interested in this story. He sent me a story below. Forbes would be the ideal outlet for this piece. Let me know what you think. That might sound pretty generic, but he did a few key things here that got my attention. So first of all, he used my name and he used my correct name. I get pitches made out to Sally and Bob and Jim, and I'm thinking, this guy can't even get my name right. Obviously, he doesn't know who I am, so at least get the name right. Personalize it that much. Then he says, I've been following your writing. Okay, that tells me as a writer that he knows that I'm a writer. He knows what I'm doing. He knows that I'm not a guy on the news doing video or TV or radio. He's showing me that he actually knows who I am. And then he said Forbes would be the ideal outlet for this piece. So he knows that I write for Forbes. When I see this email, it tells me this guy knows who I am, at least a little bit. And that's better than a lot of the pitches that I get that don't say any of that stuff. So third, offer something. Offer something to the writer, something of value to them. So what can you offer? You can offer sources. Hey, I know this guy who might be a great source for your article. Journalists love that. We love sources in our articles because it makes our articles more valuable. It gives them more credibility. Maybe you have data. Maybe your company does research or you took a survey. And this can be simple stuff. Go do a Twitter survey, get 100 responses on that, and then go pitch a journalist with it. That's easy. It's fast. And yeah, that's not exactly a huge sample size, but you can still pitch that to a journalist and say, hey, we did this Twitter survey. Here are the results we got. That's better than nothing for the journalist, and that might be something that gets his attention. Infographics. We love infographics because they make our posts more shareable. People want to read our posts if they have infographics in there. So come up with an infographic and share that. The great thing about an infographic is that once they're out there, they might get picked up by multiple journalists, and they might go around, and you get a lot of traction out of them. Don't offer to help write an article. So when somebody approaches me and they say, hey, I'd love to help you write an article, what I hear in my head is, this guy wants to be my intern, and I'm going to have to spend 20 hours training him on how to write an article, and he's going to write some junk, and I'm going to have to edit it and do all this stuff. So when somebody says they're going to help me write an article, what I hear is, oh man, this is going to be a lot of work. This is going to take a lot of my time, and I don't want anything to do with this because I don't have a lot of time. So don't offer to help write an article. just write the whole article and send it to the guy. So if you're pitching a journalist, write the whole article. They're probably not going to publish your article as it is, but that article is going to give them all the information that they need to write an article. They can look at that and say, wow, he's got sources, he's got data, he's got graphics in here. Yeah, I can work with this. I can take this and maybe in a half hour I can rewrite it in my own voice and go do a little bit of additional research and put it in there. Now you're making it easier for the journalist to write about you. So become a ghostwriter, write the article, pitch the entire article to the journalist. So again, offer the whole article, data, sources, infographic, put it all together. Now, and then the fourth thing is just keep that pitch brief. If you write a long email, people don't read long emails. Or, well, they mean to read the email, but they don't. So if I get a long email, I look at that and I think, oh, this is going to take me 5 minutes to read. I don't have 5 minutes. I only have 1 minute right now, so I'm going to star this for later, and I'll read it later. And then I never read it, because I never get back to it. I mean to, but I just don't have time. So you want an email that can be read in about 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. That's how long your pitch should be. Now you can do a two-step approach with this where you can have a short pitch at the top, and then you have an obvious break in your email, and then you have your longer pitch down below if they want more information. But that has to be really clear visually. And I don't mean the words, I mean it has to be obvious that the journalist can just look at that and say, oh, I can just read the top part and get the gist of what they're saying, and then if I want more information, it's down below. But you need to make that obvious if you do it that way. So keep it brief. Okay, so here's a case study. I bring all of this together, and because again, I was putting together my presentation and I thought, people might not believe that this actually works, that you can actually do this and get into these top publications by following these tips. And if I do it, then they're going to think, well, he just reached out to a friend of his and he got this published. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a case study. I'm going to make sure that this actually works. So I started on this last Thursday. My slides were due last Monday, but I started on this last Thursday. I said, I'm going to try this out and see if I can get an article placed before this conference using these steps. So here's what I did. So I took that post from Quora, remember about the SEO advice? That was a popular post on Quora, so I said, oh, great, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to create a post around that, a blog post. And I'm going to create an infographic. So I took 3 tips from that Quora post from Rand Fishkin and Matt McGee and some others, and then I reached out to other SEO experts. I reached out to about 15 SEO experts, and I said, hey, I'm putting together this article. Would you like to contribute a tip to this? And then I'm going to go pitch this to Inc. magazine. So I gathered a bunch of tips from other SEO experts. I put this into an infographic, so I've got Rand in there and some other people in there. And then I started pitching it. I wrote the article, put it all together, and I reached out to John, who's a writer for Inc. magazine. I don't know him. I have no relationship whatsoever with him other than I follow him on Twitter and I connected with him on LinkedIn. But he doesn't know me. I don't really know him. So I sent this pitch to him. Hey, John, we've connected on LinkedIn and Twitter. I've been following your writing for a while, which I have, as being honest. And I'd like to pitch you on publishing an article in Inc. that includes quotes I got from 12 SEO experts, including Matt McGee, Rand Fishkin, Will Reynolds, Leda Solis. So what did I do here? I personalized this. I used his correct name. I said, hey, we're connected on social media, and I've been following your writing. And then I started offering value to him. I said, hey, I've got an article for you. You don't have to write it. It's easy. Here's a whole article. It's already written. You don't have to do any work if you don't want to. I've got quotes in here. People like quotes. Remember, journalists like quotes. I've got stuff from SEO experts. So again, I'm personalizing it because I analyzed John's writing. I saw that he had written about digital marketing and SEO before, so I knew he would be interested in that. So I put SEO in there so that he would see that and say, oh yeah, I'm interested in SEO. And I said, here are some names, Matt McGee, Rand Fishkin. These are people I know that he's going to recognize. So I customized this pitch for him, but I kept it really brief, really simple, and to the point. So I sent that to John, and I got no response. 24 hours went by, 48 hours went by, and remember, I started on this last Thursday. I'm trying to get a case study for today. So I'm really nervous here. I'm thinking, oh, this isn't going to work out, and I have limited time, and I don't want to pitch 2 journalists on the same story at once, because then what if John gets back to me and says, yeah, I'll do it, and I've already pitched somebody else. So I waited for 2 days, and I said, okay, normally I would advise waiting for 6 days, But I thought, 2 days have gone by, I can't wait, I've got to pitch somebody else. So I did follow up with John. I sent him a direct message on Twitter. I said, hey, just wanted to make sure that you got the email that I sent. He didn't respond to this either. So I thought, okay, I've got to move on. So I found another contributor on Inc. that I had zero relationship with, didn't know, but he kind of fit the same criteria. He had written about digital marketing before. And I pitched him. I sent the exact same pitch to him, and he responded immediately and said, I like this. Let me know when the infographic's done. So I finished the infographic up, sent it over to him, said, okay, here's the article, finished. Here's the infographic, finished, ready to go. And he said, this looks great. I'll publish this. I just have one condition. One of these 12 guys, I don't really like that guy. Take that guy off, and then I'll publish it. So I got him to say he would publish it, so I feel like this experiment was a success. But then he put me in this awkward position because I'd already talked to that guy that he wanted removed. So at that point, I cheated. So at that point, I said, nah, it's probably just better if you don't publish that. And I took it to a friend of mine at Inc., and he's going to publish it instead. So I cheated at the end, but I did get somebody to say that they would publish it if I would just remove that person. So does this work? Does personalizing the pitch work? Does including an infographic work? Does writing an article for the journalist work beforehand? Yes, it works. I proved it right here. I did it with somebody that I don't know. You can do this too. Anybody can do this. You can pitch these writers and get this stuff in there the same way. So with that, that's, bonus tip. Keep trying. I could have given up after that first guy, but I kept trying, and I got it on the second try. You might have to try 10 times, but if you follow this recipe, it will work. And a lot of people, they try with PR, they try with placement, they try with content marketing, and they'll try it 1 or 2 times, and then they say, oh, that didn't work. So that's what we call the PR pizza. So I tried PR, it didn't work. Well, did you really try PR? I mean, if you can't tell, that's a really badly burned pizza. But, you know, people try a burned pizza, they say, I don't like it. Yeah, of course you don't, because you didn't really try pizza. You try PR, but you try it the wrong way. Yeah, of course it didn't work. You did it the wrong way. Try it the right way. It does work. It works great. It can do great things for your business. So thank you very much. And I think we've got about 5 minutes in case anybody has any questions. So, anybody? Yes?
Yeah, so you've written for a lot of prestigious online publications. Did you use the front door or the back door to get in there and get those?
So the way that I got into Forbes, how did I get into Forbes? It was through the friend method, the friend pitch. So I had a friend who wrote for Forbes. I went to her. I had no idea how it worked, and I just said, how did you get that gig writing for Forbes? And she said, oh, I'll introduce you to my editor, and she introduced me to the editor, and he said, oh, we'd love to have you write for Forbes. That's how that worked. From there, once I started writing for Forbes and I started seeing the results of it, I thought, I need to leverage this, because what if someday I don't write for Forbes anymore and I didn't take advantage of it? So I went from Forbes, and then I went to Entrepreneur, and I said, hey, I write for Forbes. Could I write for Entrepreneur too? And they said, oh, yeah, you write for Forbes? Great. Yeah, we'll take you on at Entrepreneur too. And then I went to just one publication after another that way, leveraging what I had already done. And so now I've written for 20 publications or something, and I've got relationships everywhere. And actually, I did get kicked off of Forbes 2 months ago, so it was great that I had all these other places that I could write. So, and that's a whole nother story. I'll share that some other time, how I got kicked off from Forbes and how it actually turned out to be a great thing. But yeah, so I leveraged that position, and then I got in through the front door with other publications. But you can work your way into these contributor publications by being active on LinkedIn Pulse, by publishing on Medium, by blogging a lot. And there are a lot of people that Forbes will find, and they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, we love your content. We'd love you how to write for us. That's the best way to get in, is just to have great content out there. Yeah, Bill. Right.
So there's two sort of schools of thought. I'm just curious about what the advantage of doing 20, infrequently versus 1 frequently.
Right. So yeah, this broad versus deep question. So I write for all these publications. Yes, obviously I cannot publish for 20 publications once a week. It's just impossible. So I focus most of my writing on 1 or 2 publications, and then the others I just kind of keep there in my back pocket. So I try to get into the publication to develop the relationship, but then I publish very infrequently there just to maintain the relationship, just to kind of keep it there in case, and also to get the badge so I can say, hey, I've written for Mashable. Now, I've only written 2 articles for Mashable, but I can still say that I write for Mashable. And now that I'm not writing for Forbes, I'm cranking it up with Mashable, and I'm starting to contribute more content there. So, but in the past, I focused most of my attention on Forbes, and now I'm posting a lot on entrepreneurs. So I rotate it around depending on what's working and what makes the most sense. Yep.
What success rate would you say you have of getting either one of your client companies' names in there or links that you're intentionally trying to get in there?
I'd say if you want to put a number on it, I'd say 90% success rate. It's a lot of, I mean, we follow this formula with our company. This is how we get mentions for our clients, and it works pretty much every time. I mean, as long as we try it enough. It might not work on the first person we pitch, but if we keep pitching that article, and maybe we have to change the article and tweak it a bit, but if we do it enough, then we get it in there. And it's not too much work. I mean, it's work, but it's not a ton of work. Yeah, in the back. So average time for a journalist to respond once you do a pitch, it's usually immediately or not at all. So if you don't get a response within 24 hours, chances are you're not going to get a response at all. But sometimes the journalist is on vacation, they're on a trip, they're just busy on a deadline for the next 3 days. So my recommendation is wait 6 days. If you don't get a response, follow up once. If you don't get a response from that, move on. You don't want to follow up 4 or 5 times. I get people doing that. Once they start following up 4 or 5 times, then I start really ignoring them. So, yep.
Is there any nuance difference when you target influencers that aren't necessarily journalists?
So targeting influencers like bloggers and these celebrity influencers and things like that, I would still, I think all the advice that I've put in here still stands for influencers because they want the same thing. They want publicity, they want an article or a blog post that's going to get attention. And so the same tips still apply, that you need to look at what they want. I mean, this is just straight sales, right? You need to figure out what the people you're selling want, and then you meet their needs. That's sales. And so when you're doing influencer marketing or you're pitching a journalist, it's still sales. It's just figuring out what they want, giving them what they want in a way that they understand that it's what they want. So I would say in that sense, the same stuff applies. All right, I think if there's one more question, we might have time for one more. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. All right, thank you very much.